everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dr.Podcast. And today we have an amazing guest, Dr. Jill Dalman. Hello,
Hello.
how are you doing?
It's a good day, even though it's raining.
Oh, yeah, rain is great. We need rain in California, right?
Yeah, for sure, for
So,
sure.
thank you so much for accepting to be our guest. How about you tell us a little bit about your background and the driving force behind your decision to pursue a doctorate degree?
Well, my background is pretty much revolves around moving 17 times before I was 21 and then finally settling in the great state of Hawaii, or as most mainlanders know it as Hawaii, but it's not. And once I settled in there, I was writing for a local magazine on the island of Kauai, which featured food articles. So I did a lot of feature writing, what's called feature writing. And I knew I wanted to get better. So I went to school to go ahead and become a better writer, and then fell in love with writing centers and did a master's degree in writing centers, and then decided I wanted to keep going, and then aimed for the PhD and obviously got through that.
That's
So
amazing. So do you think there's like this defining moment or inspiration that sets you on this path? Like there sometimes we have the aha moments or this is it, right?
I think I had the belief that I'm not finished learning as much as I possibly can. And sometimes that not finishing is, it boils down to, um, I want to learn more, I want to learn more, I want to learn more. And there are no classes in learning more. So this was the way that I got to learn more. So
Hmm.
that was pretty much it. Is you can't be you can't go into this thinking, oh, I'm going to take a bunch of classes and then I'm done, because you're not done. And if you stop, then I think you stop learning, and I think you stop growing as a person. So it was important for me to continue that growth.
You mentioned something really important, which is how we need to be perpetual students, right? No matter
Mhm.
what discipline are we in, we will always continue learning. And there's no better way of learning even than teaching. So I'm not sure if you
True.
did teach while you were doing your PhD. I know that pursuing a
I did.
PhD is a no easy task, especially like you said, you were balancing research, personal responsibilities, teaching. How did you handle these competing demands? I mean, were there some strategies or moments of clarity that kept you moving forward and being able to
Yeah.
balance?
I think the number one thing, if I were to go back and do it again, I learned by trial and error as to how much free time, because you want work, life, um, and time, the quiet time that you need to read for your area exams, and to write the and do the research necessary in order to create a dissertation that's worth reading. And so I think a lot of mine stemmed from curiosity. And I know I'm doing something right, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know how to keep doing it. So there's a lot of research that goes into that as well. Um, I think, too, that the one thing that saved my sorry little was was building in what I call buffer time. So if I think it's going to take an hour, I would put it down for an hour and a half. If something was due on Tuesday on my calendar, I would make it due on the previous Friday. And this way I had the time that I needed to make certain that what I was producing was worth reading, that I could double check my resources and my research, to make certain that I was, I really was producing the best product I possibly could. But I think a lot of that is buffer time. So
Buffer
just
time.
build in
And
some extra time.
okay, and how did you balance teaching with research in addition to your personal, responsibilities?
That was a little bit different because I taught uh, minimum of 5 classes every semester, all writing classes, which is not the easiest. So I learned later that what I was doing was actually good teaching pedagogy. Um, so what I would do is I'd have a good balance between full credit, no credit, do the work, get the credit, and high stakes assignments. So a good balance between low and high stakes. So that allowed me time to grade. The other thing I did was I started meeting with students and developing something called grading conferences. And the grading conferences helped me to stay on task because I knew I wasn't going to spend more than a certain amount of time talking to a student about their paper. And that made them take the notes, so I didn't have to worry about my hands cramping or handwriting becoming illegible or any of that. So, yeah.
That's great. And how did you take care of yourself in the
Oh,
process of doing everything?
okay. So here's my biggest piece of advice. At the end of the semester, schedule yourself for a massage or a day at the spa because that's how I did it. In Hawaii, there are a very large number of massage therapy schools. So I would call them and I would make a 90-minute massage, and then some student would be getting their hours in like they needed in order to get their license, and I was getting a break. So, and I would sign up for all sorts of extras too, aromatherapy, hot stones. That's how I took care of myself. And it's almost like my little carrot at the end of my day. So I
It's
was
like your
able
reward,
to,
right?
that was my reward, my reward. And
Perfect.
yep. And I would also go ahead and I had, I don't want to say I had abandoned popular books, but popular books that had nothing to do with my studies kind of got
Yeah.
shoved to the side. So I used those as my carrot during the semester to
Hmm.
teach. And if I finished grading a specific class's worth of essays, I would say, okay, you get to read a chapter in your book. So I
Hmm.
did that a lot. And that
Yeah,
helped
this is
quite a
very
bit.
important, right?
Yeah,
Because sometimes it's just that we don't want to feel that we're burnt out when it comes to our own discipline. We cannot
right.
do our PhD in our own discipline, in addition to teaching our own discipline and reading books in our own discipline. It's good to tap into other disciplines as well, which makes us also well-rounded, right?
Right.
And with a wider scope even.
Yeah. And I have, when I did my undergraduate, I was a geology major until the middle of my senior year. And then I switched to writing because it's a natural progression. Not.
Hmm.
But, I still made certain I took time out to do something in nature that made me very happy is, just
Hmm.
to, you know, go look at something and say, oh, check it out. Look at how that was formed. And that made me happy too. So,
That's great. How about self-doubt? I mean, we do all have those moments of self-doubt. So, and imposter syndrome sometimes, right?
yes,
So, how did you overcome this?
the imposter syndrome, I don't think I really overcame it until after I had been teaching a while. And then when I realized how many students were lined up to talk to me about essays or even assignments in other classes, that's when I figured out that, oh my God, I really can do this thing. And it's not, but it took years to overcome that. I'm not going to say it was an easy path because imposter syndrome is there for a reason. I think it's to keep us humble and
Hmm.
to remind us that we don't know everything and we're not perfect and we're not expected to be. So
It's a positive
learning,
outlook.
yeah. And it takes a while to figure it out because I just remember sitting in my classes as a PhD student going, how did I even get accepted into this program? Because the program I got accepted into took 8 students a year, 8. And I was one of, I don't know, 120, 130 applicants to that particular school and that particular program. And there was never a doubt that I would get in. That was, everybody's like, okay, you got into your number one. What was your safety school? And I'm like, I applied one place. If I didn't get into that place, then I would have gone elsewhere. But I went ahead and I applied only to one place, which was my number one choice. Now, I don't recommend doing that. I was blessed. Let's put it that way. They went ahead and picked me.
Which is great. I mean, maybe you can share what made your application a winning application.
I spoke to the head of the graduate department and about that. And he had told me, he said, you write eloquently. And it was the writing that got me in to this particular program. And
did
so,
you see a sample? Like,
pardon me? Oh, yeah, you had to produce a writing sample to get into the program. And it was, tell us about an area of your life, and you're like, like, what part do you want to talk about? And so, so what I did was I chose something to write about that had to do with overcoming obstacles and adapting and being flexible. And that was, I think, what got me in. And I found out from one of my professors later that the head of the graduate school, Dr. Jeff Carroll, he said to the committee, he said, this girl can write. And she said, and once he said that, because he was a person of very few words, that's when everybody went, okay, she's it. That was it. And so I was that's very awesome. Grateful for that.
Well, I feel that from what you said, I don't think you had self-doubt. I mean, applying for the one school that you really wanted, right? You had that confidence within, and you had
I had the confidence. I did not feel, I mean, that does not mean that I didn't suffer from imposter syndrome, because I totally did. But
so one way to deal with imposter syndrome was to have a positive outlook on, what it might be needed a little bit to humble us down.
Sure.
That's great.
I would,
That's great.
Totally. Yeah, that nailed it.
So. Okay. So they say that the right mentor can change the trajectory of your life. Can you share a meaningful interaction with a mentor or a colleague that you feel transformed how you view research or academia? And this will be followed by another question in regards to advice or wisdom that they imparted that stays with you until this day.
I was really, I seriously lucked into someone who was a pioneer in my field, and I had no idea that he was. I was, in my undergraduate, I was partnered with Dr. Christian Weiser, who is considered in my field to be the father of eco-composition, writing about the environment. And the environment is a passion of mine, geology major. And he showed a lot of belief in me, and that meant so much to me. And I also knew that I had to give him my best, because he knew when I was handing in a rough draft, and he was not pleased with that. By the time I became a senior, I was his teaching assistant, his undergraduate teaching assistant. And then I went ahead, and when I went for my master's, he sat on my master's committee, and he sat on my doctorate. But by that point, he had already left the University of Hawaii system, and he was at the Penn State system. But he still stuck it out with me, and very, very appreciative of him. And I think in many ways, he nurtured me to become who I am. And he shared his letter of recommendation with me, which I know you're not supposed to do, but he did. And in it, he said that I had a gift for writing, and that, that I was basically leagues beyond what a lot of other people were at. And so that's something that I have really carried with me most of my life, and well, most of my academic career. And he was also the person who said, okay, these are the things you need to do to become successful outside of school. So he was there for my CV. He was there, obviously he was there for the defense of my dissertation, because he was there for that. But he was always there believing in me. And because he believed so heartily, it almost became a thing for me to believe in myself just that much more, because I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to let him down. And we still keep in touch to this day. So, yeah.
These are the impactful mentors. And like you said, it's very important to have someone who deeply believes in you.
Yeah.
Because this actually helps us in expanding on our inner motivation, right? The self motivation,
Sure.
and because of cherishing that amount of trust that is put on us as well, right?
And I think part of it is, I don't want to call him a parental figure, because he definitely was not. But I think when you have a mentor position like that, there's a lot of trust. And they trust that you will do all the things you need to do in order to be successful. And because they trust you, you don't want to let them down, So that does make a difference.
Yeah. It's a mutual relationship built on respect, on trust, on encouragement, so many positive things, right?
Right, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, which is if someone is considering a doctorate degree in your field, what insights or advice would you offer to them? Are there specific skills, mindsets, let's say preparations that you believe are essential for the success in your area of expertise?
I'm going to pass along a piece of advice. When I was when I was working on my area exams, all the studies, all the papers that you have to read to prepare for that, I had to change. I had to change a person on my committee, because that person went out on sabbatical, and so they inserted Dr. Jeff Carroll, and he didn't know. One of my fields is composition pedagogy, and so he stepped up and he said, I need you to write a 1-page or 1.5 pages paper on what you want to study and why. So obviously I want to study composition pedagogy, but the question became why? Why do I want to do that? And when you have to sit down and do the hard work of telling someone why you want to study this, all of a sudden things become clear. And so for me, the reason I wanted composition pedagogy the way that I did, as passionately as I did, was when you get your first class. I mean, this happened to me, and I've spoken to other people, and it's happened to them as well, which is they hand you a book and they say, go to it. And you're like, but wait, what? Where do I start? What do I do? How does this happen? And so you really go through all this stuff, but you got to figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that when I was forced to write down what it was I wanted and why I wanted it, that it made it super clear for me to, it really did. The light bulb went off, and then I knew what I wanted to focus on. And so that's when he was able to advise a little bit better than anybody else because I had given him the reasons why I wanted to see. I mean, he didn't give me a day, he gave me a week to go ahead and turn it in. But still, it was the act of writing down what I wanted and
Mhm.
why I wanted it that helped him to help me to focus. And so that's the
Okay.
reason why I absolutely appreciated him. Yeah.
So having that mindset, that the determined mindset, right? That is goal oriented, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then having the skill of jotting down what you really want in order to be
Right.
well prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for whoever is there to advise or mentor you to also know exactly what are your weak points, what are your strong points, how can they
Right.
help you achieve what you want step by step.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
So,
that's an
yeah.
amazing advice. Any
Yeah.
other skill or something else to add to your mindset?
Be observant is the other
Mhm,
thing because when you observe what's happening in your classes, you can then know what needs to be covered again, where the shifts are. I think that that also lends itself very well to completing your dissertation or knowing what research topic you want
mhm. The
because
gaps, right?
the gaps. You're like, wait a minute, something is going right here. What is it
Mhm,
that's going right? And so keep, it isn't always a focus on the wrong. You have to focus on the right as well so that you know what to toss and what is good about what is right. So, for example, if you notice that your students really love discussions in the classroom, um, and you started out by saying, do not summarize for anyone. And then all of a sudden, you realize that even though they're always summarizing, it's helping other people engage with the material because they're like, oh, I missed that. Or they feel out of it because they didn't like complete a reading or something like that.
mhm.
And they want to be more fully engaged. So you're looking at what went right, which what went right was the discussion. They couldn't stop talking. That's awesome. To me, that's awesome. And then, but what you thought was a wrong thing actually turned out to be a right thing. So noticing that kind of information, being observant, I think is really, really crucial to honing in on that research and honing in on teaching at the same time.
You have to be observant in general as a researcher, right? In order
Right.
to be able to find the suitable questions and accordingly try to find the suitable answers. And
Right.
I think that also being observant does help us in knowing when to accept the answers as no or as
Mm.
rejected if we have a specific hypothesis, right? And not keep
Yeah.
going and going and going and saying, oh, you know what? No, I have to keep going until it's accepted or until I find the answer that I really want. Not necessarily that we
Right.
always
And you
find.
can't. At some point, you got to give it up. One of the people who I went to who graduate school with, she was there for 10 years. And it was because she wanted a specific outcome. You cannot go in there saying, I'm going to prove that I'm right. You have to go in with the mindset of, I'm willing to be wrong, to pivot, and to be flexible. If you
I
don't
love
do
that.
that, it's just not going to work. It really isn't.
So growth mindset, not
Yes,
fixed mindset.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's amazing. You mentioned a couple of things that would form a suitable mindset, not only for a PhD in your amazing discipline, but PhD in general and in any academic field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being determined, having a growth mindset, being flexible, adaptable, observant. So that's really great. That was really insightful. Thank you so much. This brings us to collaborations. So we all know, of course, how
Yes.
collaboration is often, a key in groundbreaking research. And So that is why I feel that we really need to hear from you. How did working with others shape your findings? Do you believe that teamwork is non-negotiable for impactful results? And especially when it comes to your discipline as well.
Right. Well, my my dissertation was on student self-efficacy in the first year writing classroom. So it's having students believe in their abilities as much as you believe in their abilities. So, and that they believe that new things that they've never done before are now challenges and things to be overcome instead of concrete barriers that they cannot get through. So I could go ahead and collect data all I wanted on my in my classrooms. That's awesome. But how do I know what's happening, whether or not it's transferable to other classrooms? And that's where a collaboration comes in very, very helpfully. Is when you can get other people who are willing to give you a uh, to give out your surveys and to give out uh, your name and your information. I was really lucky with somebody who I collaborated with during grad school and who I continue to collaborate with to this day. Piper Selden was that person who, in all of her classes, handed out the surveys, and then was with me in the conversations I have with students for case studies. And so I was able to go ahead and she would pick up on some things that I wouldn't pick up on, and vice versa. And I said, "Don't you remember they said X, Y, Z?" And she goes, yes, But the two of us would feed
That's
off of one
one,
another.
yeah, that's one
Yeah, and
positive aspect, right?
yes, yeah,
Documenting.
I, we needed that to be with each other. And even though I was further ahead than she was, it didn't matter. It did not matter. Even today, the two of us still collaborate. Even though she went into K 12, she's a K 12 curriculum director, and I did not. I mean, I'm staying on the college level, but my first love is first year writing, and then my second love is writing in the health sciences. But the thing that worked out with her is something that's still going on today. I know that if somebody says, "Oh, there's a grammar error," if I show it to her, she'll be like, "No, it's not," because she just knows, and she's really, really talented in specific areas where I have my brain corrects things. It's just what it does what it's built to do. And so she's really been very helpful. We collaborated on my first book, and then she hung around she's going to be doing all the copy editing for the fourth book. So
That's
no,
amazing. So you are
fifth,
an author for how many books?
too many. Okay, see the shelf where the snowman is? All of those books are me.
That's amazing.
So yeah, we did chapters together for textbooks. We've done a lot of work together.
That's really great. Collaborations do result in a lot of impactful outcomes for sure.
Hmm. They do. They do.
In every discipline we could think of.
For sure. For sure.
That's
And
great.
I mean, she teases me all the time and she says, "You are the machete and I am the weed whacker." Because I concentrate on big picture and she concentrates on very small things. So,
Yeah, the power of teamwork. Again,
exactly.
everyone does bring in something special based on their uniqueness, right?
For
Because we're
sure.
all unique one way or another.
Yes.
Every one of us have their different set of skills that they bring to the table. So that is why teamwork and collaboration is amazing in every field. That's
And
great.
it's
So
also somebody to bounce ideas off of.
yes,
So,
exactly, exactly. Brainstorming.
yes. Yes.
So, whenever we think of a PhD journey, there's always those incredible highs and lows.
Oh yeah.
What stands out as your greatest achievement? Was it a paper, a breakthrough moment, something personal that fills you with pride? What do you think?
I think the whole thing stands out. There
The
isn't
whole journey.
really one specific thing that if I could look back in time and say, oh my God, that was the best thing, it was my greatest achievement. I think the whole fact that I learned so much, I adapted so much, I learned more about myself than I think most people would ever learn in a lifetime. And it was all condensed. And I know that, I now have a different mindset when something new gets dumped on my desk and they say, can you do something? I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it.
Because you feel that, you know what, everything is doable as long as
Yeah.
there is a will. There will be a way as long as there's grit, perseverance, determination. Why not? My brain is equipped with all what is needed.
Yes. My brain did it. So yeah,
The whole journey. You're proud
the
of the
whole
whole journey.
journey for me was a journey of discovery, not just of my material and not just of groundbreaking research. It was just, oh my God, I really can do this. And I think that that's what's key,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Agree
So,
100%. Yeah, the doctorate journey isn't definitely just about the destination. That is why you have so many moments to be proud of, right? Throughout that journey. It's about who you become along the way, basically, right? So, what would you say to those contemplating a doctorate degree in general and in your discipline in specific? And what's the one takeaway or piece of wisdom that you want to hold on to in order, for them to be able to leap away with?
um, keep going, keep the goal in mind. If you're going to get knocked down, and it's not the bumps in the road that stop you, it's you who stops you. So I think the one piece of advice is make certain that you know what you want to do with that degree, because a doctorate is pretty specific. There aren't many people who have one, and for good reason. It's because there's a lot of work involved with it. How much are you willing to sacrifice to hit your goal? And that is really the whole thing for me, is how much can I sacrifice to hit my goal? And that was what kept me going. It's not going to be smooth sailing. It never was going to be smooth sailing, but it's something that in time you can look back on and say, oh my God, I did that. I turned that 120 page rough draft into 321 pages. So, and when
Exactly.
you graduate, keep your dreams front and center.
Hmm.
What do you want to do with that degree? So if you want to teach, awesome. If you want to do research, awesome. But know what you want to do, and then know what you need to do to hit that dream. And I think that's 90% of it. It's just knowing and keeping your eye on the prize.
Yeah, which means I think it needs then a lot of reflection throughout the journey, right? While
Mhm.
doing the PhD, you need to reflect a lot. Like you said, being observant will help you hone in what you really want to do after getting the
Right.
PhD, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, if we did not reflect, I think the process itself will consume our mind in a way that after we're done, uh-oh, okay, I was consumed in finishing, but then what's next?
What's next is, if going into, say, for example, You know you want to be a teacher in college. Well, you know that what's required is the PhD, but what else do you need beyond that? What do you need to do to stand out and set yourself apart? And I think
Mhm.
that that is half of it. I really
Yes.
do, because if you're, you know, if you know what you, the dissertation is just a checkbox at that point,
Mhm.
because you know what you want to do in the future and how to get there. And I think that's where it all comes together.
This is very important. What you just mentioned is okay, it's not only about pursuing a PhD.
Yeah.
Like you said, getting the PhD is one component from so many components to achieve what you really want to do afterwards. For
Yeah.
instance, like you said, if you want to be a professor, yes, a PhD is important, but then you need some teaching experience. You
Mhm.
need to know how to write properly. Let's say you're not in the writing
Yeah.
discipline, so you need to, work on your writing skills. You need to work on your teaching skills. I do remember, for instance, after finishing my PhD when I was a postdoc doing research, that was in UC Davis. So they had this program called Professors for the Future.
Okay.
So this is one thing that I believe PhD students can do, because we did have PhD students also in that program. It's identifying different programs that are short term, a 1 year, a 6 month, beside the PhD that you can join that are related to what you want to be after the fact
Yeah.
of, or after
Right.
getting the PhD, right? So did you have like any programs in your university, or did you hear of any programs that are related to your discipline, or things like that that students could think of if, let's say, they want to be published authors with a PhD in writing, for instance, or
I think that what the advice I can give on that is throw it out there. And by that, I mean, send it over to a journal and see what they say, because they're going to tell you. Those editors, I am an editor for a peer reviewed journal, and we tell people these are the things you need to do to make this publishable in our journal, and follow that advice. If they say no, it doesn't fit, that means you might have a really great idea, but the focus of the journal is not on that particular thing. And so here
okay,
we're going to recommend that you go other places, but you have to be fearless in your
I
pursuit of
see.
those publications. You have to say, okay, this one didn't work, and eventually something will work. I
Hmm.
mean, the right fit will happen, and that's 90% of it. I think is when you have some journal editors who are willing to work with you.
I see. So beside joining programs that are related to what you really want to do after, let's say, achieving
Mm-hmm.
your PhD, also going for it, meaning even while doing your PhD, being fearless. If you want to be a published author, submitting your publications to
Yeah.
publishers or journals. If you want to, let's say, teach, starting your teaching career while you're a student. So jumping into the sea and learning how to swim while
Right.
during the journey.
During the journey, and I think that I used to be years ago when I first started out. We're not going to say how long ago that was, but years ago when I first started out, the ad said, and this is another thing that I'm going to give you some advice on, is start following the ads from the first year of your PhD to find out what's available. What is it you want to do? And then look at what the qualifications are, because that tells you, that informs you what they're looking for. So back in the day, when I was first starting out, the ad said potential for publication. Today, they want those publications in hand. So take those papers that you've written and start sending them in and seeing who wants them and how they want them, and moving forward from there.
Hmm. Hmm. That's a great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, we have come to the end of our episode. So any one take home message that you would like to end with before we end this episode?
Sure. So one of the things that I want to emphasize is that you are perpetually learning. So subscribe to journals, subscribe to things that will keep you current in your field. Even if it's just go to the library and read something once in a while. Build in some buffer time so that you can allow yourself enough time to get your jobs done. And if there is free time, yay! um, Remember to practice some self care and to believe in yourself. I think believing in yourself is key to success in anything. Know why you want that PhD. What is the reason for it? Be observant the whole time you're through that. Be prepared for a growth mindset. And most of all, be fearless.
I
So
love it. Dr. Jill Dalman, I cannot thank you enough for being with us today. Uh, this episode was really filled with great tips, great insights, great lessons learned. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me. This was awesome. I
Of
appreciate it.
course, thank you.